Up next, my chat with Greg Greenfield, so stay tuned in. You're listening to Back Talk with Sharona.
We are back. You are tuned in and listening to Back Talk with Sharona. I'm joined now by my boo, Greg Greenfield. I'm going to ask him sometime during the course of this interview how he feels about his wife having a side boo. We're not going to start with that. We're recording this, by the way, on Sunday evening. This is the first of a couple of interviews that I'm doing for today's show. As I told you guys, we're talking Packers, too. So, Greg, you've been on Sonia and my webcast. So this is your first time on my podcast. Welcome.
First time. I'm nervous.
You should be. I'm not going to cook you and eat you.
What?
I promise.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, okay.
I promise.
Good. As long as you promise. No, it's fun. I'm really looking forward to it. So
I'm looking forward to it too. We've been talking about this. Well, Sonia and I have been talking about this for a while. And finally, she was like, "You should slide in the DMs." I'm like, "I'm so used to sliding in your DMs. I don't know how to slide in his DMs." And so we finally got hooked up and got to talking about it. We're going to talk some gaming. So you guys know I'm always down to talk some gaming. I'm excited about that. But we're going to start with some beer and alcohol talk. Again, it's Sunday evening. I'm relaxing. I've got a glass of wine. I've been playing. Speaking of gaming, this is literally the first off day that I have had, and it isn't even an off day because I'm doing interviews. I had intended yesterday to be an off day because the last 2 or 3 weeks have been crazy for me. But I ended up, feel free to judge, I ended up finally taking down the Christmas decorations. And listen, before you judge, let me just tell you, it's early for me. Usually it's after the Super Bowl before I get around to it. But I did it yesterday and did some other stuff. And then today I did stuff around the house, laundry. But I have been playing, during my downtime, I've been playing Mass Effect 3. And I don't know if Greg's ever played. Have you ever played that?
Yeah, I'm not a big Mass Effect guy. I'm not far behind you, by the way, with the Christmas stuff. Our tree is still dying in our living room.
That's what you said.
It's down. All the stuff is off of it. I just have to finally get it taken out to the curb so they will get rid of it. And the reason I always delay doing it is because, like, with the doors that we have, they're so narrow, it's very difficult to, like, not make a big pine tree or, pine needle-y mess on the carpet.
That's the worst thing with live trees.
Yeah, I have to try to figure out how I want to do this so that, and then of course too on the night before the garbage pickup, if it's a bad weather night, if it's raining or if it's snowy, which we have to deal with up here,
right?
I just say screw it, we'll do it next week. But Sonia took the lights off of it, and this tree, it was a really nice tree this year, but I don't know what she did to it when she took the lights off, but it looks terrible. Like I came home and I immediately.
It misses its accessories. It misses the lights. It's just sad.
It's like there's a lot of needles missing. It's like patchy. I wanted to sell the whole house when I came in the door. I was like, okay, that's it. We're selling the house. We're leaving. I can't stay here anymore. This is terrible. But
that's the worst thing about live trees, or the pine needles, or the tree needles and stuff.
Yeah, well, she's not going to let me get an artificial tree. I tried to broach that topic this year and last year to see how she would feel about it, and she gave me the world's worst side eye, so I knew that was not going to work.
Well,
so we're going to have to keep doing live trees for a while anyway until she gets tired of it.
I went with artificial trees for a couple of years, and they're definitely not the same. By the way, one year I left my artificial tree up just the whole year. It's like I just didn't get around to it. So we got that going. So I'm drinking some wine, and you said that you were drinking a beer. You're not all that happy about your beer. What beer are you drinking?
So tonight we are drinking the last of the Heineken Light. I've actually had I've had to drink more light beer at this point in my life than I've ever had to before, due to some acid reflux issues. I'm normally an ale guy. I'm normally a more full-bodied beer guy. But what I found is that after 2, I feel like I'm going to float away. So I've had to switch over to light beer. And I really hate light beer. So it's not
the same. It isn't.
It's not.
But Heineken
It's
Light
not.
is pretty good for a light beer. It's actually pretty good.
And that's what I'm dealing with right now. That for a light beer, it's not a bad beer. I bought a 6-pack, and I'll go through that tonight, and then I'm actually going to be abstaining for a while. So, and it's funny because, this is a Hop Slam season. Bell's Brewery Hop Slam is out, and if you haven't gotten it by now up here, you're not going to get it.
Oh yeah.
It's already sold out. But I don't really like hoppy beers, but I'm a big Bell's fan. So normally you'll find me when it comes to beer, just drinking whatever seasonal Bell's, particularly Oberon, especially Oberon. But if it's an ale, I'll drink it. Last night, oh goodness, what do we have? I had some Delirium Tremens, which is a Belgian beer, which I really love. And it's only on tap.
I like Belgian beer. It's good.
Yeah, this is a really good beer. This is if you've never had it, normally when you find it in bottles, it's like in a liter-sized bottle.
Yeah.
With little pink elephants on the front of it. But there's a handful of places.
So you really do see pink elephants.
I mean, literally, I guess if you see the bottle, yeah, you do see the pink elephants. Otherwise, what you're going to find is that it's very difficult to find on tap. So we went to a place last night that has it on tap, which is the only reason I chose to go there. Is just one more chance to have some Delirium Tremens before I give up beer for a little bit here. Other than that, I'm not really big.
I had to go lighter beer too. Last fall, I really got into stouts, particularly coffee stouts and porters. I had my first, as best I can remember, I had my first porter, which was a coffee porter. It was pretty good. But those, and I absolutely love. I'm hooked on Dragon's Milk, which is so good. But I also can't drink, for two reasons. I can't drink a lot of it because it has a lot of alcohol by volume, and I get loopy and silly and funny. And then the other thing is that they're just so heavy, that it's like, bleh, and I just started feeling bloated and stuff, and I was like, I'm going to go with lighter beer. I'm not a big beer person anyway, but I drink beer on my Wednesday night show, the show that I do with Zach Wall. We drink beer and we talk football and stuff, and so I have it for that and stuff. So I'm drinking a red wine. I'm going to let Greg, if he can't guesstimate what my wine of choice is.
All right, so it's a red. So that's my head.
Oh.
I'm just, I'm going to say because you don't seem overly sophisticated, it's probably just a cab.
Okay. I don't see it. Why don't I seem overly sophisticated?
Because, anybody who spends any amount of time talking to someone, you can't be that sophisticated. She's a very simple person, very straightforward, not too hoity-toity.
Do you see our text messages? You ever peep and see our text messages?
No, I don't. Well, I don't see the messages themselves.
It is the funniest stuff. I'm telling you, it is legitimately the funniest stuff.
It must be, because every time I turn around, she's got her phone and she's, her phone's like blowing up. It'll be 2:00 in the morning and here come more stuff in the inbox and I'm just like, oh god. I'm trying to go to sleep.
Fun. We have a lot of fun. I am drinking. It is actually a blend. It's a wine that I have not had before. I do enjoy a good cab.
Okay.
I like a full-bodied wine, a wine that packs a little bit of I like jammy wines, This is a wine. It is called Roadside Red. It is a blend. I forget what grapes it has. Let me tell you what grapes it has. It has, may not tell me. Somewhere on here, I'm sure that it does tell me. We're not going to waste that much time trying to figure that out. But it's a California wine. It's a 2011 vintage. It's very good. I generally trend toward Oregon and Washington wine, so this is a good California wine, and I'm enjoying it greatly. So I drink a lot of the wine, the last wine that I had was a Meritage, which is another blend.
Mm-hmm.
I like Malbecs, so that kind of stuff. I like a good Shiraz, and Zinfandels. I like Zinfandel, not white, but the red. I stick mostly with red wine. I would pick white wine, but I'm big on it.
Yeah, so you've listed most of the red wine. So basically, you like reds. You're a red wine freak.
Yeah,
I like a good Malbec myself. I'm a big fan. I have a weird story about me and a guy and a challenge out in Napa. We were at a restaurant out there, and we went to this restaurant, and there was a challenge on the board where if you could guess the grape and country of origin, the bottle was a penny. So we're just, we're out there for work, so we're game for whatever. And the guys, they bring the glass to the table, and as soon as it hits the table, I just blurt out, "Oh, it's a Chilean Malbec."
Oh yeah, I like Chilean wines. Yeah.
Yeah, but I was just being silly. I mean, I figured obviously we're in Napa, they're going to give us some kind of Napa wine. But anyway, the guy sips, he's like, dude, I think you're right. And I'm like, okay, we'll go with that. So the guy come back over and he says, hey, it's a Chilean Malbec. And you should have seen this dude's face. I mean, the guy who brought us the wine, his eyes got as big as saucers. He's like, wow, no one has ever gotten that close before. It actually was Argentinian.
Okay.
So it was an Argentinian Malbec.
They're very
one
close.
Out of thin air.
Yeah, Chile and Argentina use the same variety of vine. A lot of it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But what's funny is most of the Malbecs I drink are actually Argentinian and not Chilean. So I don't know why. I mean, I defaulted to Chilean, but whatever. Mm-hmm. So that cost us. He gave it to us for like $1. I think it's a compromise that we worked out.
Argentina and Chile both produce really excellent, full-bodied wines that really pack a lot of bang for your buck. And so, if you're listening out there and you're a wine lover like me, and it sounds like Greg is too a little bit, definitely check out both of those countries. Yeah, they're really, really, really good. Let's go ahead and move on into the Oscars discussion. Wanted to get Greg's thoughts. We've been talking a lot about the Oscars, diversity in Hollywood, the Oscars So White movement, and as we discussed on last week's show, it's really just symptomatic. As Viola Davis so rightfully and so eloquently has talked about, it's really symptomatic of a much deeper issue. And I had a conversation about the Michael Jackson movie. Are you familiar with this story, the Michael Jackson movie?
Yeah. So I've had some conversations about that casting issue with some of my friends, and when we joke about it, we say that well, by the time he finally died, he was practically a white guy anyway. Yes. So yes. I kind of get it. But I think that when you look at it realistically, it's just symptomatic of what happens.
It is.
When it's time to cast people in Hollywood. They would much rather cast a white person as a person of color and put them in some kind of blackface than they would change the race of a character that someone perceives shouldn't be changed. And you see that with whether or not Idris Elba will get a chance to play James Bond. Right. But you see that when Michael B. Jordan, when he was cast as Johnny Storm in the Fantastic Four movie, and everyone lost their minds. Yeah. So
also with he was cast as Creed, and Sylvester Stallone is the one who got the Oscar nomination, and he did a fantastic. I haven't seen the movie, but from what I gather, his performance was stellar.
Yeah, I actually loved Creed. I thought it was the best movie that I saw all year last year. I certainly enjoyed it more than some of the other blockbuster movies that were out.
Well, let me explain to you why I haven't, and just for reference, I think I might have talked about this on the show. I still have not. The last movie I saw at the movie theater, I went and saw the latest Jurassic Park movie. I didn't pay for that. Somebody took me to that. And so I've never seen the new Star Wars. I'm so cheap, right? And plus I work a lot. I was like, last week I was like, damn it, I'm going to go see the new Star Wars. It's time. And so I jump on Fandango and look up ticket prices, and it's $15 just for the movie. And I'm like, fuck that noise. There's no way I'm paying $15 to go and then have to buy their stupid popcorn that's not nearly as good as mine. And, so this is why I will watch it. I'm excited to watch it. It's a movie that I want to see. I just don't go to the movies.
So you're going to wait for Netflix, or?
I'm on Netflix and chill with it, baby.
Yeah. All right, there you go. I mean, first of all, with Star Wars, you're not missing anything. So I would not, if I were you, be in a rush to go see that, because I don't know if you were a big fan of the originals. Obviously, no one was a big fan of the prequel movies.
Yeah, I saw the originals. I think I might have saw part of one of the prequels, but yeah, and I didn't watch it all the way through. It was okay, you know what I mean. I thought the originals were good though. I very much enjoyed them.
Yeah, I mean the prequels I don't think play a big part in what's going on with these new movies that J.J. Abrams is going to be making, but I was disappointed with it. I thought it was very much a rehash of
I've heard other people
what
say
I'd already
that.
seen, and it was just I was disappointed. I thought they had a chance to do something really original, and they really didn't.
It got as a series, it got very repetitive anyway.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at just from the original trilogy, there was a lot of similarities between the plots of the first movie with Episode 4 and what happened in Episode 6. Both of them involve a Death Star. Basically, this involves a Death Star too. So basically, of all these movies, half of them have a damn Death Star in it, and it's the same thing. We got to blow up this Death Star, or else there's going to blow up. It's a lot of explosions and a lot of big star-shaped round balls blowing up in space. So, I mean, when you get beyond that, that's where the story kind of moves you, or either grabs you or doesn't. But yeah, I was not that happy with the Star Wars. I was much more into Creed. It was a wonderful movie. And getting back to Sylvester Stallone and his nomination, when you talk about should he have been nominated, I think that's the real issue when you talk about whether or not white actors are over-nominated, or rather black actors are passed over. When you look at his performance, I don't have an issue with it when you look at it just as an isolated incident. Should he have been nominated? Sure. I don't think that I have a problem with his nomination on the micro sense, but when you take a step back and you look at it on a larger level, what you find is that you can easily see in each one of these films where there were actors of colors or directors or writers who were passed over and basically shut out. And I don't know, for me, it's not a big deal because I don't care about awards in award ceremonies anyway, because it's a damn award. I mean, isn't it?
Yeah, they are rather silly, but still, it is symptomatic of the larger issue.
And it is, but for me, it's a question of how big is the actual issue. When you talk about sports, for example, and you talk about how for a long time there was a stigma about black quarterbacks and whether blacks should even be allowed to play the quarterback position, that's a situation where you have people who are not being allowed to pursue avenues of success. It's the highest paid position. It certainly comes with a different sort of stigma than other positions on the field. And you had African American athletes who were being steered towards other positions because they weren't cut out to be quote unquote quarterbacks. And I think that stigma is more or less past. But now, when you talk about some of the conversations that we've had with like Cam Newton, should Cam Newton be the MVP because he makes people not feel happy when they watch him play football?
Which is ridiculous.
It is, but I think that's the sort of thing I don't care about. I don't care if you feel as though Cam is the MVP or isn't the MVP because it's an award, and at the end of the day, he's either going to be a champion or he's not, and that's something that he's going to prove on the field. So,
except that, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but except that in the NFL, a lot of times these awards trigger compensation clauses in their contracts, and I don't know if Cam has one in his contract. There are definitely compensation clauses, incentives for certain awards like Pro Bowl and things of that nature. And so It does, in an economic sense, make a difference.
Yeah, and if he doesn't have some kind of escalator or clause for being league MVP, then he needs a new agent. But at the end of the day, I don't think that it's going to diminish him as a person or validate him as a player if he wins an MVP or not. When you're an actor, maybe that's all you have to hang your hat on. So whether or not you have an Oscar or whatever, but even within that community, they tier the level of awards. So nobody cares if they won a Golden Globe award, or nobody cares if they won a SAG award. It all comes down to this one award, the Oscars, and it's the hardest one to obtain because it's decided on by essentially a board that is overwhelmingly elderly white men, and that's just not the audience. The audience that they make these films for.
I'm going to have to put some thought to this because I'm not so sure. I think it's a great point and a valid point. But I do wonder, in the minds of these white producers, these white directors, if, a guy like Will Smith, who's very appealing to a white audience, to the white powers that be, if getting these nominations, I think it does, in a larger sense, probably make a difference to them. Because they'll look at a Will Smith and say, look at him getting these awards and he's appealing and we'll cast him. Whereas, another guy who is incredible and fantastic and, does a great job but doesn't get a nomination might, I don't want to downplay what the accomplishment is, but I wonder what weight it does play in their mind.
I think there's two levels to it. One, it's the prestige of being a nominee and an award winner, and then two, there's the real power, which is the box office power. Nobody really cares if you have an award, if you don't, if you sell tickets. And when you look at the history of particularly black award winners, a lot of them, their careers don't actually recover from winning. It's actually been a big detriment. I mean, you look at Jamie Foxx, who won for Ray, and that was a well-deserved nomination and award. But then what has he really done since then for his career? He's really not done anything. I mean, I think his biggest movie since then is playing Electro in Spider-Man 2.
I don't like Jamie Foxx, so I saw Jamie Foxx in concert, and I've got good reason. I haven't talked about that on this show. I've got good reason for disliking dude, so we'll just put it that way.
Sure, and that's fine. But aside from whether it's Jamie Foxx or whether it's Jennifer Hudson or whoever it is. Right. You find a lot of these actors and actresses, they win the award, Halle Berry, they win the award and then their careers really kind of stagnate and don't go anywhere. So I don't know that even winning is something they should be worried about. It's about, your ability to continue to pursue your craft if that's what's important to you, or to get paid as an actor or an actress if that's what's important to you. I mean, at the end of the day, I understand that there are a lot of hurt feelings, but they understand the game that they're playing. And honestly, if we're going to address anything, it should be the lack of opportunity, the lack of diversity in the roles in Hollywood, period. Not necessarily the lack of award winners.
Yes, I completely agree. Yeah, and this is what I said last week when I was having a conversation about this. I think that Hollywood, the entertainment industry in general, and we'll talk a little bit more about the Michael Jackson thing, so I think it's illustrative of it. They exhibit far too often linear thinking. And the example that I gave was Draft Day, which is, as a movie, is pretty terrible. Have you seen it?
I'm surprised that you've seen it. I mean, maybe I should be surprised you've seen it, but it looked so bad. I had zero interest in watching it at all.
Saw it at my sister's house. It was late at night. We were all chilling. They've got Netflix. And we were going to Netflix and chill, but for some, I don't even know how it came up. The movie came up, they had it, and I said, well, I haven't seen it, and so we watched it. And this is why, part of the reason why I say that. It's still largely dominated, by white actors. And even though they cast a woman in a very strong semi-leading role, she's, she occupies a high position within the Browns organization, but she's still secondary in the sense that she's Kevin Costner's love interest, and she ends the freaking movie pregnant with his baby, you know, and it's like, we can't tell this story without that, which in real life is all kinds of problematic, and it puts all kinds of pressure on women, you know, who don't want to go to the office in the NFL, don't want to cover a game in the NFL and be forced into that subsidiary role as somebody's girlfriend, wife, you know, baby carrier. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I think that's probably true for a lot of entertainment, and for women in Hollywood, women who are cast in what we traditionally call strong roles often find themselves having to relate to whatever a male character is going through. So, you know, whether it's a love interest or whether it's, you know, some other conflict that is defined through the lens of a man, it's really difficult, I think, to find stories that really do portray women accurately as strong characters that whose entire purpose for being don't solely revolve around what's going on with some other man in the movie. Yeah. But at the same time...
Not that there's anything wrong with romantic movies, but if you're going to make a movie about... Anyway, it's just kind of crazy. I want to ask you, since we're talking about this, and I talked about this with my friend Mike, it had been a few years since I had seen Blazing Saddles. And
yes.
Yeah, and so, I mean, this kind of ties into this discussion. So I pop it in the other night, and Sonia and I were tweeting and texting about it. I pop it in, and I was like, holy shit. I had forgotten how bad this is, you know, and I understand. I know that Richard Pryor was involved in the project. That's another story, you know, how he got screwed out of a lot of things. That's another story in and of itself. But I digress. It is meant to, I think, and I think this is fairly accurate, be a spoof of a lot of prejudices and perceptions of race relations in America and black males. But I spent the first 20 minutes, and I guess I'm getting older and I'm growing up, and I'm becoming. I want to think that I've always been a thinker, but after 20 minutes, I was texting your wife, going, "Bae, what do you think about this? What do people think about this? Particularly, what do black people think about this? And particularly, what do black men think about this?" And she's like, "You got to talk to Greg about it." And I'm like, "You are right. I got to talk to Greg about it, so hit me." What?
So, Blazing Saddles is one of my all-time favorite movies.
Okay.
I think that, I like Mel Brooks in general. I love Spaceballs.
Yeah.
But Blazing Saddles has a special place. Yeah, it's a great movie, but when it comes to Blazing Saddles, I don't think that there's ever been anything like it. And I don't think we're going to see anything close to it. Honestly, I think the closest we're going to get to a Blazing Saddles in today's world is a film like Django or something like that. But even then, they're two totally different movies.
I didn't make it 20. I only made it 10, 15 minutes into Django and was like, "This sucks," and turned it off.
Well, I don't know that it sucks, but it's not typical of what you see in a lot of Hollywood.
And I like Quentin
currently.
Tarantino.
Right, and I do too. I'm a big fan of his. But when we talk about Blazing Saddles and we talk about the current Oscar situations with Oscar So White and all of those other things, I think it shows how systemic this is and how persistent it's been, that you've got some of the same issues that were brought up in that movie and done in a very clever way, in an indirect way, that are still there. And I don't know that they're going to change. But the thing that I find funniest about Blazing Saddles is how in your face it was about some of the issues, and how it didn't seem in your face at the time, because that's just the times in which we lived. I barely lived. So the point.
Do you think a Blazing Saddles would get made in Hollywood today?
Absolutely not. No, hell no. There's no way. There's no way that you could make that movie today. I mean, even when you talk about a film, and once again, going to Django, that's a film that you can only make a certain kind of way. And when you talk about, Cleavon Little and the role that he played as essentially the lead in what is basically an all-white film.
A role that was supposed to go to Richard Pryor, by the way, but the studio wouldn't allow it.
Right. Which there's a lot that went into Richard Pryor, and there's a lot about Richard Pryor that I wonder if the role would have been as good for him had he gotten it. I mean, I think that's always going to be a debate. Would Richard Pryor have been better in that role than what Cleavon Little was?
I thought he was great. Listen, don't get. I think he's great in that movie.
Oh no, he is. But I think it's obvious that, especially if you've ever seen any of the other work that he did with Gene Wilder, because they had several movies together, that those two had a real chemistry. Would that have been the pinnacle?
I've seen Stir Crazy. I've seen everything that Richard Pryor ever did because I love him, and all his stand up that you can get on, that's recorded, and his documentary is actually fantastic.
Yeah, I actually have all of his stand-up albums as well, and
Live on Sunset Strip will never not be good.
No, it won't. And that's kind of the thing, when you have talented people telling a story, I think it's okay for the story to get a little outside of what people are used to. Mm-hmm. And when you talk about Mel Brooks and what he was able to accomplish in storytelling, and making something that's relatively unpalatable. You talk about race relations. I think it makes a lot of people uncomfortable for obvious reasons. Mm-hmm. And it's a difficult topic to broach or have a serious discussion about because it's so easy to shut down. Mm-hmm. It's interesting that movie has still endured for as long as it has, but it's not something that you're going to ever be able to replicate. It's not something that you're going to see. It's not a movie for future generations to look back on and have the same sort of appreciation. I mean, if I were to start that movie today, sitting on my sofa, is it something that I would imagine that I would ever want my kids to watch? No. But was I around their age the first time I saw the movie? Absolutely. And I didn't get a lot of it, but I did get a lot of it. And it's just, I think the deeper issue is that it goes to the levels of complexity that you have when you start talking about race, because it's not going to be one layered. The conversation has so many different rabbit holes, and it gets so deep and so many different ways where it can go off the rails. In terms of Hollywood, and not that I've ever been in Hollywood, so this is all outside speculation on my part, but I think that when you start talking about movies like Blazing Saddles or Live on the Sunset Strip, or in these movies that really kind of talk about what it's like to be black in Hollywood, what you find is that most black actors, or most of the stories you hear, is that it's really kind of unsatisfying. It's I don't find that there are a lot of people who are at the end of the day saying that this is a situation that we are satisfied with, but it doesn't also seem to be a situation that's going to be easily correctable because it's pretty lucrative for it to not be for the people who are participating in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. I guess, I don't know, I guess I was just, it made me uncomfortable to think, that, and you're right, a lot of those attitudes are still, they still percolate around. It's definitely, I've watched it, don't get me wrong, I watched it. There are certain parts of that movie that I lose it over. And I've seen it, I don't know how many times. It's definitely a good movie, and I like Mel Brooks too, and so interesting stuff. I want to ask you another thing that we talked about last week. Are you big on politics? Are you following the presidential election? Do you vote? Do you mind me asking? Do you vote?
Yeah, I'm a voter. Okay. I don't know that I've followed this year as much as I would have in other years. This year is going go down as being one of the most bizarre in the history of American politics. I used to work in politics actually before.
Oh yeah.
Before I left, and one of the things that we've talked about a lot with my circle of friends who are still very active in it, or just people who are interested in it, is the really weird dichotomy that we have on the one side with the Democrats, and then whatever's going on with Republicans, and the rise of celebrity. It's funny, you go back to 2008, and we had Barack Obama make this just meteoric rise all the way to the presidency, and even after he won the nomination, you have Sarah Palin make it onto the ticket literally out of nowhere. No one had ever heard of her, and she became this sensation overnight. And in the post-mortem, as we were talking to my friends about, now that we have our first black president and what's happened there, it's just my overwhelming sense was that celebrity in all of its forms had made its way to Washington and wasn't going to go away. And while it didn't necessarily have a whole lot of impact on the 2012 election, I think you can clearly see that with Donald Trump and his persistent place and standing at the top of most of the Republican polls.
No, you're right. You're getting ready to say appeal.
Iowa.
He's definitely. He appeals to a lot of people in this country, and I don't get it. I will never get it, but he's popular as a candidate.
Well, I understand it. I mean, I understand it because it's not hard to understand. It's hard to agree with. When you talk about Trump, and first of all, I will say when I considered his candidacy from the very beginning, I was like, well, there's no way he's going to stay in the race long. I just thought it was, kind of a circus sideshow publicity stunt. But as he, just made it through debate after debate, and people continue to be drawn towards his participation, it became more clear to me that I had totally misjudged a couple of things. And one of the things is that there are a lot of people who are unhappy with where the country is in their minds. And whether or not that's a real thing or just something that's happening in their minds as far as whether or not America is going downhill or, is somehow in need of salvation, that could be debated as well. But in their minds, they're losing their country. They want their country back. Typically it's particularly for the GOP, it's just code words for saying that, minorities are prospering and we don't want that. Because in their minds, they can't reconcile this thought that it's possible for minorities to prosper and it not be at their detriment, rather, not at the detriment of white people. And that's largely because so much of the history of this country has been that the majority has prospered at the detriment of the minority. And so I think that's part of why when you talk about folks who are very afraid of this idea that, in a few years minorities will become the majority, they don't have a way to wrap their mind around it. It just scares the shit out of them because at the end of the day, they're afraid of all the things that have been done to minorities happening to them. And so at their core, they understand the dynamics are unfair. They understand that persecution is real. They understand that once you're a minority in this country, it's not a good look. But they also can't come out and say that they've perpetrated all of these things. And a lot of them, honestly, aren't personally responsible for it, but they still benefit from it. So it's a sort of a weird dynamic there. And so when you fall back on the commonalities of, hey, we have religion in common, even though Trump's not really an evangelical, hey, guns, hey, we hate Obama and socialism and all of those things.
No, but he very much operates in an evangelical mode, which is part of, that is definitely part of his appeal. Do you read Ta-Nehisi Coates?
Yeah. I'm a TNC guy.
Yeah, he's fantastic. He's so smart, and he's written a lot about that and about the debt that this country owes minorities, particularly Black Americans, for slavery and the Jim Crow laws, of the Deep South, and some of the other policies, the pirating of basically stealing of money with the loaning situation, the mortgage situation, and you know, he's taken Bernie Sanders to task for his opposition to and it's not just his opposition. It's that Bernie Sanders comes across as this radical, and he has been radical in his lifetime and very supportive of civil rights and all of that. But he became very pragmatic when he talked about reparations, and my thought process is still forming on that subject. What do you think about reparations?
I think that it's an interesting concept that will never happen just because it hasn't happened yet. I mean, there was a window of time where reparations would have been something that would have been real.
When was that, do you think?
You know, I think when you start talking about going all the way back to the end of the Civil War and 40 Acres and a Mule and all of those things, there was a time, late 19th century, you know, early 20th century, where you could have made a case for that. But the further removed you get from slavery, the less of a possibility that really becomes. And
I think that you could have still made a case, a very good case, up until the late 60s, early 70s. And after that, it becomes harder to make that case.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that. You know, I think there's a lot that goes into it, because the thing of it is that when you start talking about reparations and you make them specific to slavery, the impact and the effects of slavery are still enduring. It's not like it's something that not once we ended slavery, we ended all of slavery's ills. And a lot of the things that were going on in slavery were simply repackaged and relabeled and offered as something new and something different. So you already talked about Jim Crow laws. But really, when you start talking about disenfranchising blacks, not allowing them to vote, you know, you touched on some of the things that TNC was talking about in his articles when you start talking about redlining and how you create a system that keeps minorities, particularly blacks, for so long at a disadvantage at every turn, whether it be their ability to participate in politics, whether it be their ability to, you know, own property that's going to actually appreciate in value, their ability to avoid the criminal justice system. You know, all of these things that by and large are perpetrated at very high levels and are so, they're so pervasive, it's impossible to wrap your arms around the whole thing. I mean, the whole system is rigged against minorities from day one, and I think a lot of people don't like to hear that or admit it, but it's just the reality. And when it comes to reparations, one of the reasons I think it will never happen is because it's almost impossible, and I think it is impossible, but it's almost impossible just to quantify what the damages even are. I mean, what dollar value can you put on what slavery has meant to America, what slavery has meant to African Americans? You know, what is the damage that has been done, and how can that be made whole through writing a check if we were even in position as a country to write that check? I mean, we're in billions and trillions of dollars of debt, so it's not even a situation where it's a reality, where it's possible. However, does something need to be done? I am in full support of that. I mean, I think to me the biggest thing is that the country hasn't even acknowledged it. The federal level. I mean, slavery hasn't even been acknowledged as a bad thing that U.S. was responsible for. You can talk about the amendments and the 14th Amendment, you know, and removing it from the Constitution in the first place, but literally the Constitution, this country was created telling everyone, you know, not just the citizens but the world, that, you know, we do not see these blacks as people. We certainly aren't giving them rights. You know, they are property. We will count them as part of a person for, you know, census purposes. You know, they're 3/5 of a person, but, you know, they're not actual people, and that's written. You know, that's, if you look at the Constitution, it's there, and it's a really harmful thing if you're an African American as a black man to look at the document that founded this country and to see that you kind of get a better sense for why there's so much disenfranchisement, and it doesn't matter that it was rectified later, in part. It's a really impactful thing that I don't think you can make right, and so to a degree, you do just kind of have to move forward. When you talk about the fact that we have a black president, something that I think a lot of people in this country never thought they would see.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people thought that they would see, but not this soon.
Yeah.
I think that's, once again, one of those things is a step in the right direction. And for me, the real conversation about reparations doesn't need to start with Bernie Sanders. It starts with a post-White House Barack Obama. I mean, this is the thing that I'm most interested about this guy.
What's he going to do after he gets out?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. What's he going to do? What's he going to be after he's done being the president? Because there's so many things he can't advocate for as the president. But we'll be able to really see what's important to him and what's not when he can speak out on issues and not have to worry about appealing to anyone or not having to be presidential about it. So we'll see. I mean, I think that's going to be far more impactful than, whether or not Bernie Sanders agrees with it or whether Hillary or Trump or anybody agrees with it, because it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Will we actually see who Barack Obama really is after he leaves the White House? That's a great point, a great topic for another day. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to have some fun talking Kanye, as I like to call him, and some gaming talk. So stay tuned in. You're listening to Bat Talk with Sharona.
Up next, the conclusion of my interview with Greg Greenfield.
All right, we're back. So I understand Greg is a Kanye fan, and we had a fun conversation about Mr. Kanye West last week. Did you happen to catch the Twitter beef with Wiz Khalifa and the subsequent ending to the discussion by Amber Rose?
I did. I love Twitter on certain days, and last week, seeing the beef between Kanye and Wiz and Amber, that was one of those days. The only thing that I regret is that they couldn't have waited a few more days so it could have happened during Black History Month, because I think that would have been the most appropriate thing to happen, to start Black History Month with this. Would have been great. It's funny to me that certain people take things so seriously. And if I were either one of these two guys, and I have lots of money, I have other things to do with my time, the last thing I'm going to be worried about or trying to get engaged in is Twitter beef. However, I think that it's also, Kanye's got an album to promote, so, he's got to get his name out there. But it was really, really an interesting look. It's really an interesting look at society and how we feel about a lot of different issues. Because on its surface, it was like really just petty silliness. And if you liked a 17-point dissertation on why I don't mess with you, then you had that, and that's funny in and of itself.
Well, the funniest part about the funniest part about it is you really, when Kanye does this, you really do get a fascinating glimpse into dude's mind, and and how his mind works. And he's like, that I own you and your son, and then cool pants dude, I looked at I like your pants, and then he deleted everything. I love everybody, and blah blah blah. And it's like, listen, I said it last week. I'm saying it again. Kanye West is washed. Dude is done. And back in the day, he was a creative genius. His voice is gone. The single that he dropped right before his last one, the one that he did with Kendrick Lamar, was awful. It was terrible. The one he did with Kendrick Lamar is good only because Kendrick Lamar is that dude. Kendrick Lamar is who Kanye West used to be. He is the creative genius of the rap world right now.
I'm going to have to disagree with most of that. I love Kanye. I love Kanye for what he does. I love the fact that he pushes the envelope and he's changing things, and he's evolved so much as an artist. I think a lot of the reasons that people don't enjoy him the way that they used to is because he's not the guy that they first fell in love with or first were captivated by.
Jesus sucked.
Jesus didn't suck. It was awesome. It was great. It was amazing. It was amazing. It was totally...
Awful. It was terrible. It was unlistenable.
Oh, see, well, once again, I think it really comes down to what you're looking for and what you're into. I mean, was it the college dropout? Absolutely not. But that's what I loved about it. I love the fact that this is a guy, an artist, who went in a totally different direction from what he had been doing and what got him to where he was. I didn't mind it. I mean, I think that, honestly, and you talk about Kendrick, I mean, To Pimp a Butterfly as an album to me was rather bland and disappointing. Mm-hmm. I thought that Yeezus was way more of what people told me they got out of To Pimp a Butterfly. I mean, I understand that most people don't like Yeezus. I loved it. I mean, but I also loved 808s and Heartbreak, and people hated that. I mean, people hated 808s so hard, but now if you go back and listen to it, it's probably, in my mind, it is his best album, but it's debatable. I mean, everybody likes what they like, but it was certainly so far ahead of its time that people didn't appreciate it, and I think they have a much better appreciation now. I think Yeezus will be appreciated much more a few years from now when everyone's doing that, because I feel like that's what's going to happen. But you talk about this Twitter thing with Wiz and Amber. I thought it was really interesting, not just, the disrespect that he wanted to just sprinkle all over Wiz's head. It's an interesting dynamic. I think we've talked about relationships and what happens when there are kids involved and exes involved. And Kanye is somebody who I think at his core has a very hard time letting go of things that used to be in his life, I mean, Amber is so far in the rearview mirror, you would think that he would be done with that by now, but he's obviously not.
He's not, and she is definitely way more involved in his thought process than she should be.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think that if
he's married, he's got kids with Kim K, and he's still,
Yeah. I mean, I get that part of it, and that's true. But
let me ask you this: do you think that the way he reacts toward Amber versus the way he reacts toward Kim has racial undertones to it?
I don't know that I think that. The way that he reacts towards Amber and Kim, I think, are both coming from the same place, in as much as he's a possessive dude, and I don't think that he feels like I don't know that he feels that Amber still isn't his in a way. But it's really weird. It's just, like I said, everything about the whole dynamic is weird. So you talked about the very beginning of his relationship with Amber and the fact that nobody really knew who she was before she got with Kanye West. And then we all became familiar with Amber and all those things. And people actually thought they were a cute couple. And he leaves her and gets with Kim Kardashian, who has her own past, and obviously, her exploits with Ray J and everything else is very public. And so you would think that he would be cool with the idea of a woman having a sexual past. And yet every opportunity he has, he continues to bring this up about Amber, but not his own wife. And it's just it's a weird thing, man.
When he said he had to take 30 showers before he could get with him, that was awful. That was terrible.
It is, and I think it's also...
And to me, I had this conversation last week. I'm not so sure that it doesn't have racial undertones. It definitely has class undertones. Amber's a stripper. Kim K is the daughter of someone famous, who's famous for fucking some other dude. Just, I mean, what's the difference?
Well, I feel like with Kim, for whatever reason, that's what he aspired to. I mean, he wanted her in his life in a way that's probably not healthy, and he's willing to overlook a whole lot of that. But I don't know. It's a terrible situation all the way around for everybody involved. I feel like they should all just like take a break from Twitter.
Get it wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk some gaming. We sort of talked about this. So you're not a big role-playing guy. Did you play all three of the Mass Effect games or not?
No, did not play all three. I'm not really a huge RPG guy. First-person shooter guy, puzzle games. So,
what's your all-time favorite game?
All-time favorite game, series, all of it's going to be Halo. I enjoy Halo a lot. But, you know, I don't know. I mean, I like titles that have characters that I can get into playing. Like, so we talked a little bit about Tomb Raider. The new Tomb Raider stuff is, I think, outstanding. It's
I heard it's really good.
Done.
Yeah, I've heard that it's very good.
I think it's some of the best stuff that's ever been done, and what they were able to do with Lara Croft and how they changed her character made her a hell of a lot more interesting than she was back in the old PlayStation days. But what I will also say is that at the end of the day, I probably like enjoying games that I can play with my friends. That's usually what I'm going to gravitate towards. So I play a lot of Call of Duty, not because I care for Call of Duty anymore, but it's just a way for us to all get together and play. And when we play, it's more about the conversations and just the catching up with each other. It's almost like poker night, more so than it is about playing games.
Most of these RPG series are going multiplayer online. You can play online. Of course, the original Mass Effect, you couldn't. ME2 had limited. All of the RPG series that I play, their latest installments have online gameplay. So it's definitely going to that. I'm warming more to first-party shooters, third-party shooters too, than I ever have. I have to get back into Call of Duty and Halo and all of those. I used to play them. I don't have a lot of time now. When I do have time, it's like, I want to play the games that I like. So, interesting.
Right.
Greg, it's great stuff. I'm going to have to let you go, buddy, because we've gone an hour.
It's been an hour already. Wow.
Yeah, we've been going for a little bit over an hour. So, I got another guy waiting to do a little Packers chat. You're going to have to come back on. We're going to have to talk some more gaming and flesh out some of these other things. We'll talk some more about Kanye. Maybe you can convince me Kanye's not washed.
I absolutely will. We're gonna go a listening party. We're gonna go track by track.
I want to get back into it. We'll go through Jesus and some of I even thought he was starting to slip in my dark twisted fantasy.
Oh really? Wow. Yeah. Okay.
Even though I named the fantasy league that I was in with Sonia. I named my fantasy football team my dark twisted fantasy football team.
Yeah, and see, it just goes to show, at your core, you know that I'm right. At your core, you want to be a believer. So we'll bring you back on board.
His last single, the one that he did on his own, sucked. Hey, tell everybody out there where they can find you on social media.
All right, so hey, if anybody is interested in hearing the random musings of myself, you can find me online at Twitter, at NoKids3Money. That's at NoKids, the number 3 money. Really, that's about it. I mean, I'm not going to let you guys follow me on Snapchat yet because that's a little wild still. So we're going to keep it safe. We're going to keep you on Twitter.
Oh, now I got to follow you on Snapchat.
Well, see, now it won't be Snapchatting.
I got to ask you. You seem pretty cool with it. How do you feel about your wifey having a side boo?
I think the better question is, what's it like to be a side chick? I think that's what I would probably ask you.
It's low maintenance, baby. It's low maintenance. I like it. It's all the fun responsibility.
Yeah, well, I mean, don't hate the player, hate the game. I can't take anything away from you. You have got her all twisted up. So, a tip of the cap to you.
All right. Thanks for joining me. Have a great night.
You too. Thanks for having me on.
Okay. All right. Bye.